Good afternoon, I'm Rob Boskamp, and you're listening to South Texas Midday. Thank you for joining me on this Thursday, February 12th. Water woes in the Corpus Christi region continue as the Evangeline Groundwater Project is now on hold until March 2nd. That's after a group consisting of St. Paul Water Supply Corporation, an area farmer, and the city of Sinton protested against the drilling permit. The city is concerned about the city's water supply and quality should the project be allowed to start. A water emergency is expected to be declared in Corpus Christi this November. Well, those looking for a quick getaway or need to fly somewhere on business in the Victoria area, well, good news, you're one step closer to having more options. The Victoria County Commission approved 2 upgrades to the control tower that the Federal Aviation Administration will foot the bill for in 2027. During the meeting earlier this week, the city airport director told the commission that the county will need to find another $15 million to build a second terminal. A new investigative piece from the Texas and California newsrooms have found that since late July of 2025, the U.S. Office of Refugee Resettlement is sending all pregnant, unaccompanied minors to a single group shelter in San Benito. Previously, the children were sent to separate foster homes or shelters. The decision to move the girls there goes against urgent objections from the Trump administration's own health and child welfare officials. 7 sources within the office say that the region lacks the specialized care girls as young as 13 need. We now go to Lon Gonzalez, who speaks with reporter Mark Betancourt to find out more.
And a good afternoon, everyone. Lon Gonzalez with you. And on the line, Mark Betancourt, who in collaboration with another reporter has released something very, very interesting about some orders going on through the Trump administration sending pregnant, unaccompanied minors apprehended by immigration enforcement to a shelter in South Texas, San Benito, Texas, in the Rio Grande Valley, to be more precise. Mark, how are you doing today?
I'm good. How are you, Lon?
I'm wonderful. Listen, this particular story is very, very involved. First of all, how did you come across a lot of this information and getting to where we are now?
Well, this was information that was shared with me by several sources. I spoke to 7 different people within the Office of Refugee Resettlement, which is an office within the Department of Health and Human Services in the federal government that handles the custody and care of unaccompanied migrant minors. So basically, when people get when children get picked up by immigration authorities, if they're not with a parent or legal guardian, they go to ORR custody, and they get usually placed in shelters or foster homes around the country. And people within the office brought to my attention the fact that last July, the government actually ordered ORR, this office that handles unaccompanied kids, to send all of the pregnant kids, which means basically anyone in ORR care who is pregnant. The children can be very young, up through 17 years old. Anyone who was pregnant had to be sent to this one shelter in South Texas, and that immediately caught my attention because I knew that was against the sort of usual flow of how things go on at ORR, and that was about 6 months ago, and we just sort of put our noses to the grindstone to try to figure out what was going on.
Why this particular shelter in South Texas?
Well, that was the question. It was really unclear why they would concentrate all these girls anywhere, let alone at one place in Texas, where the main concern that was being passed on to me from people within ORR was basically that there's not a lot of health care, as a lot of your listeners will know. If it's not a healthcare desert in some of those places, that certainly the specialized healthcare is very limited there. So care can be delayed or not available at all, and that's really important because these girls have what a lot of doctors told my reporting partner Mose Bushell and I are high-risk pregnancies. The younger a child is who is pregnant, the more likely it is that they'll have complications. A lot of times they can give birth too early because of their size, which can be really dangerous for both the mother and the baby. Some of these girls are so young that they're still growing and their pelvises aren't actually wide enough to safely give birth. So they basically, almost by definition, need specialized health care that is very limited in this area. So that was one of the main concerns that came with placing these girls at this shelter. This shelter itself has actually, as recently as 2024, was barred from receiving pregnant girls for a little while because they were not providing proper medical care there.
I see. Knowing a little bit about that region, I know that literally a half hour west of San Benito, you've got the city of McAllen, which has multiple medical facilities who could probably help these girls. Is there not a shelter in that part of the Rio Grande Valley?
There are several shelters there. It's not clear really what exactly the reason for that is, why they were placed at this particular place. But the problem is that there isn't that much, not only is there not that much specialized care in terms of what they call maternal fetal medicine specialists, there just aren't that many of those people. So, if there aren't that many of them, that means they've got more patients, that means it takes longer to see them. So there's sort of this ripple effect in general. But also you've got to remember that because of the almost total abortion ban in Texas, just placing these girls in Texas means that if there are any medical complications that may require what amounts to an abortion for life-saving measures or to protect these girls during some sort of medical emergency, it can be unclear whether or not that care can fall within the exceptions under the abortion ban. So the abortion ban alone can actually create a lot of confusion about what care is available across the state.
Now, looking through some of the information in your story, going back to 2017, the ACLU filed a class action lawsuit against the, I'm trying to remember who the person is, but also against the Trump administration on behalf of pregnant girls in custody of ORR. And the ACLU, as your story mentions, argued that denying the girls abortions violated their constitutional rights. Now, again, here in Texas, we do have an anti-abortion law in place. Now, understanding that since July, a couple of pregnant girls have been let out, and one of them was, they were both asked if they wanted to end their pregnancy. Only one chose not to. Are we keeping tabs on all the other girls who are possibly given these particular options as well in the event of a medical emergency?
Yes, and just to be clear, it's not protocol within ORR to ask the girls whether they want to terminate their pregnancy, but the current regulations require that if a girl does request an abortion for any reason, they are actually required to help facilitate that, to make sure they have access to an abortion. Now, if they're in a state like Texas, where it's basically illegal to do that in almost every case, the requirement is basically that they be moved to a shelter in a state where they can get an abortion. So we know that those, as you pointed out, those regulations are still being followed. What's changing is that the Trump administration is actually in the process of rescinding that regulation. Now, we don't have the exact text of that yet, so it's not clear what the fallout's going to be exactly. But we know that at least some of these girls are going to end up not having access to abortion because that requirement to move them out of the state, if they ask for one, will be rescinded.
So knowing that many of these girls are under the age of 17, are they in contact with any parent or guardian at this point in time?
And that's something that we don't really know. Their privacy is, for good reason, very closely guarded by the agency. And so we don't know a lot about the girls directly. But we do know that most children who are in ORR custody have come here to meet up with somebody one way or another. The government calls those sponsors. So a lot of times they're waiting to meet up with a parent or family member who's in the U.S., and they're just the government is going through a vetting process to reunify them with that person. That is, in theory, the goal of most of these children. And so they are waiting to be released to those people because of new vetting rules that have made that process take a lot longer. All kids, not just pregnant kids, are spending a lot more time in custody, and thus creating a pressure to voluntarily depart the country, which we know that some of these girls already have.
So what is the impact going to be from your story and how it will be wide-ranging? How do you think people will react to it once they understand what's going on?
Well, we know that abortion is a very complicated issue. It's definitely a very fraught issue. Everybody comes at it from slightly different angles. But I think the thing that we were trying to accentuate with our reporting is that in this particular case, if in fact the reason that the government is doing this is to deny these girls access to abortion, in the process of doing that, it's placing them somewhere where they don't have access to a full range of medical care, which can be very dangerous for them given how how much they are already at risk because of their condition. Also being, that the fact that they're migrants and they may have come to the U.S. in a situation where they're very undernourished and they may have been traumatized by a number of different things. All of those things complicate their pregnancy. So we really wanted to focus on the idea that if you were going to place these girls somewhere to give them the absolute best shot at surviving their pregnancies and thriving and having healthy babies when they are born, this is one of the last places in the country that you would place them. And I think that's the impression we got from people within ORR, that there are just so many better options to protect these kids.
Well, Mark Betancourt, we certainly thank you for your time today and talking about this very eye-opening story, to say the least. And we're hoping that maybe down the line there may be some more answers than questions about this particular issue. Certainly thank you for your time, sir, and a great story that came out of this. And I'm hoping that the impact of the story will have some kind of effect on people in power.
We hope so, too, and we'll be happy to keep you all posted. Thanks a lot, Lon.
The Corpus Christi Army Depot, or CCAD, could lose thousands of jobs and billions in economic activity as the military shifts its helicopter repair strategy. Recent developments suggest major changes ahead. According to an article published in War on the Rocks, more repair work is shifting to private companies while the Army plans to reduce its helicopter fleet. That could mean less work for CCAD and less opportunity for skilled workers.
The Army has a new game plan called the Army Transformation Initiative, and that game plan does not include as much helicopters as it has in the past.
That was Preston Cook, Executive Director of the South Texas Military Task Force. He spoke with Chris 6 News. Corpus Christi city leaders held a press conference Wednesday to discuss their collaborative efforts with District 34 Congressman Vicente Gonzalez. Nueces County Judge Connie Scott also announced plans to travel to Washington for meetings with federal officials.
Our requests are straightforward. We are asking Army leadership to enforce the 50-50 rule, which is essential to maintain a strong, skilled, and mission-ready workforce.
That was Scott speaking at yesterday's conference, audio courtesy of Chris 6. City leaders are also calling for modernization at CCAD as part of their strategy. The proposed solution includes a steady workload for the depot, establishing it as the primary repair hub for Blackhawks, and clearing old debts from unplanned government missions. Gonzalez told Chris 6 that the next step involves bringing decision makers to Corpus Christi to witness firsthand CCAD's importance to both national defense and the local economy.
We need to draw the red line and say no more. We cannot allow any more job losses. We need to bring decision makers in Washington down to the base to see for themselves the great things that happen in this base. It's a historical base that has done so much for the defense of this country.
In 2011, the depot employed 5,900 civilians. By 2021, the figure dropped to just under 3,200. Based on current workload projections, it could fall to 1,000. That is according to the Corpus Christi Caller-Times, which also reported that CCAD employees received an email offering to shift employees to other locations in the U.S. Department of Defense. Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton is suing the social media company behind Snapchat, alleging the platform misled parents about safety risk for children. The Texas Newsroom's Lucio Vasquez reports.
Paxton says Snapchat has promoted itself as safe for young users while failing to warn parents about exposure to sexual material and nudity. The lawsuit also takes aim at features like Snap Streaks, which encourage daily use. According to the state, this may contribute to addictive behavior among teens. This comes after Paxton filed lawsuits against TikTok and Roblox over similar claims. I'm Lucio Vasquez in Houston.
In a statement, Snapchat pushed back against Paxton's claims. They say the lawsuit, quote, fundamentally distorts how the app works. Yesterday, we shared a story with you about border walls running through natural areas in South Texas. Further up the state, wall projects in West Texas could move forward within weeks. A spokesperson for U.S. Customs and Border Protection confirmed to Marfa Public Radio this week the contracts for people under the Trump administration's border-wide smart wall plan could be awarded, quote, in the coming weeks and months. Federal officials have declined to say where exactly physical walls will or won't be built in the region, but local officials have told Marfa Public Radio they've been in contact with construction firms who are gearing up for the project. CBP says the entire stretch of the border through the Big Bend area is set for either new or upgraded border infrastructure, ranging from physical barriers to roads and surveillance tech. And that is the latest news and information on South Texas Midday. I'm Rob Boskamp. Your community arts calendar and more is on the way.